Hey, I got 7 o'clock, so we are going to get started. Welcome everybody to Wednesday Wind Down with Dan and Friends, the webinar and show for frustrated hikers and backpackers. Can't go out, can't be outside much, and I can't drink beer with my friends, so we're doing it online. So tonight, I'm drinking a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. Okay? And with us tonight is Ms. Grow.
Sandra.
Okay.
And I already had my drink. I had what I call iced tea. And iced tea is something that I coined at my father-in-law's house, which was Fireball on ice. And so
Great.
you can have iced tea or you can have hot tea, which is Fireball with a little bit of water in the microwave and you drink it hot. Lovely.
Okay, the first part you kind of had me. The second part you lost me, but
it doesn't matter because if you're at your father-in-law's house, you need some.
You drink what they're offering.
You need tea.
So tonight we're going to talk about food. We're going to revisit food. There's a lot to talk about food, but specifically we're going to talk about dehydrating food, and that's essentially homemade stuff. So I always want to start off with why. So I kind of listed some reasons why you might want to dehydrate your food. And probably the biggest one I started off with was diet restrictions, right? So lots of different diet restrictions. Sandra, now you don't do a whole lot of dehydrating, but you have a certain diet that you eat, right?
Yeah.
On the trail?
Where both of us are, Rich and I are vegetarians now. We started off and we were carnivores, but we turned vegetarian about 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And before that, we were gluten-free.
Right.
And so we had to, because we have a tendency to share our food and it kind of goes back and forth, unless I'm very intentional about it and I write it down, I pack gluten-free as well, just so that I can swap out with him.
Yeah, I'd say that's an excellent, you just nailed two of them that are really common, right? Mm-hmm. Vegetarian, vegan, and gluten. So those are great reasons. Maybe it's low salt. That might be another reason, right? So if you can control what you cook, I know. Okay, why would you do such a thing?
That's awful.
Agreed. Sorry. Ultimately, though, you get more control, right? That's the whole thing, right? If you're going to cook a specific way at home, like I have a relative that is very gluten intolerant, and they'll only cook at home, right? Then when they go to restaurants, if they have like one little molecule of whatever the foreign substance is, they're going to have all sorts of problems. So they're cooking at home. This allows that, right?
Yes.
The other reason you might do it is you have some choices that aren't commercially available. So maybe you don't like what's out there. That's the other one. And then the last one that we kind of talked about earlier in the week was the idea of cost. And what's interesting is that was way down on my list as far as things to do it. But definitely you could do there is some cost saving potential for this. So what's a packaged meal run? It's anywhere from $7 to $12 for a single.
I was thinking $12 for one of the good packaged ones, right. Unless you can go really cheap packaged and then foof it up with some dehydrated stuff, and you can get down into the $1.50, $2 range. Okay. But you're juicing it up with some of your own stuff at home, and so you're still you end up adding the price back in.
So those are maybe some reasons why you might want to. I think I do it. I'm not vegetarian. I'm definitely an omnivore, but I live with a vegetarian and a vegan. So we definitely our diet tends more that way. And I find that for me, it's really easy to get starches and carbs on the trail, right? That's super easy because, it's potatoes, rice, pasta, right? And everything in commercial, that's what it is. They also have a crap ton of salt. And salt's good, but sometimes I don't like some of the things that are too salty and they're too gluey. So for me, I'm always craving extra vegetables on the trail. So anytime I have an opportunity to pump in veggies, I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about what you might want to dry. So this is kind of the fun part. I think it's just regular everyday food, right? So you can eat you can kind of get away from that. You got backpacking food or camping food and home food. No, for the most part, you can bring home food out on the trail. And I think that's a great, that for me is probably one of the biggest reasons to do this. You were just talking about adding in and zhuzhing up some other things. So maybe you just want to add in components into your meal. So, well, one that we've done a lot, we did years ago before I did backpacking food, was cherry tomatoes in the garden. Like, what are we going to do? Oh my God, there's so many cherry tomatoes. You just cut them up and dry them, right?
Yeah.
Make your own sun-dried tomatoes, skins, seeds, everything, right? You don't just, it's like, add that stuff in, right? Or maybe other veggies. How about snacks? Ooh, I know a snack that you like. What's your favorite snack that you like to dehydrate?
My favorite right now is lemons. I'm obsessed. It's overload. It's overload. I'm obsessed with candying lemons and eating them, and I can put away a lot.
So here's an orange that I have, and essentially it's got the skin and everything, and I've sliced it. That's about the right thick. Do you slice it about that thick?
I go maybe a little. It depends upon the pith, and so that's the thing with doing some of those is getting the pith to dry out correctly. So when I do the first cut on the lemon or whatever I'm doing, I can judge what the pith is on the fruit. And if the pith is exceedingly thick, like on some lemons, not the Meyer, but some of the other ones, those varieties, it gets really thick. And so then my slices will go thinner.
So you can buy those at Trader Joe's. You can buy the oranges at Trader Joe's. I don't know if you can buy the lemons, right?
Oh,
right.
You pick them from your neighbor's tree.
True. So that's a really good, I think that's a great one. I know that when we've been on the trail, it's like my reward for making it to the pass is 2 slices, right? It's like, oh my God, it's like this is the greatest thing, right? So that works really well. One I have not tried, I'm intrigued by, is dehydrating watermelon. Man, that's got to be a massive reduction. No, not for you. Okay. I've never tried it.
It will kill me, so it's absolutely off the list.
That's true.
You're forbidden to take it with us. So okay. Yeah, no, that's
Almost forgot. Yes. Yeah. Desserts. Oh, okay. So here's another dessert one, right? So I think I showed this in one of the other ones, right? So here, this is dehydrated chocolate cake, and look how many servings there are. There are 5 servings. There are 5 people going on our summer trip. Imagine that. This is like one of those most outstanding mid-trip treats after dinner, right? It's maybe you get a little less than a cupcake out of this one, out of this 5. But so the way I do that is I've just taken a commercial cake mix, and it's no fat. So I use applesauce instead of oil, egg whites instead of egg yolk. So what, you double up on egg whites and no yolks in the eggs. And then you just dry it till it's bone dry, crumble the hell out of it, and then you add warm, moist water in, and it's just exquisite.
It's yummy goodness is what it is.
Right. I found that all rices and pastas rehydrate really well. So maybe, I just thought of another reason why you might do this. Fuel savings. So you can boil pasta on the trail for 10 to 12 minutes. You could buy it at home for essentially no fuel out of your natural gas or electric range, and then dry it, and it'll rehydrate in moments with just hot water. So I had one of the things that made it to my recipe list is a sushi bowl. Okay, so I'll take short grain sticky rice. I'll take nori strips, dehydrated carrots, freeze-dried edamame, and pouch of tuna, and a couple of, and then some rice with wine vinegar over the top. But sushi rice, right? The short grain rice, you just make a pot of it, dehydrates and rehydrates just like minute rice. Mm-hmm. That works really well. And then you mentioned quinoa or other grains. That would be good.
There's a rice pasta. It's a ramen. and you can get it at Costco. And in the bag, it's usually like 6 of those. I don't know. I call them like a plate.
Mm-hmm.
Of the ramens, and so I'll quarter it or break it into 6 pieces depending upon like how far we are in the trail because of the appetite of how it goes up and down. And so when I know that it's going to be a low appetite day, I'm going to put more vegetables in, but I'll put that quinoa noodle in, and then I will rehydrate that in the morning at breakfast so that I don't spend any fuel. No fuel spent on lunch.
So that's kind of bringing up something that I don't think I really have covered in here, but how do you use some of this stuff? Because some of it, you cover it with hot water, you let it soak for 10 minutes and it's ready to eat, right? But others, you need to soak for longer. Like one time I made chili with canned beans. Well, full-on little bean nuggets take forever. It takes 20, probably closer to 30 minutes to rehydrate. It'll rehydrate, but it takes exactly. So that's left my list. Another one that takes a while to rehydrate, but maybe worth it, is chicken. So this is just canned chicken, right? The big cans. And what's cool about this is it's already cooked. It's moderate fat, so it will do pretty well. All you do is you put it out on a sheet, on a parchment sheet or something that, you can't put it up. You don't want it dripping down on your watermelon or your lemon drops. But
a single item in my dehydrator. I do not mix my items.
Okay, fair enough. But the broth, that's part of the goodness, right? You're going to let all that stuff dry. You just as long as it doesn't run off the edges. And the thing that is important though is you want to break it up, right? Just so it turns to shred. So this I find I didn't do this last year, but I did it the year before, and I find that it rehydrates quite slowly. So I've made a barbecue chicken tortilla wrap. So I'll take the chicken, put it in its own bag, rehydrate it for 2 to 4 hours, and drain off any extra water, add the barbecue sauce, add the other ingredients, and then make my roll-up thing. So that's the way I've used it.
Mm-hmm. I've done it similarly when I was using it. I was kind of zhuzhing up some tortilla soup. It was like a vegan tortilla soup. And so because it was already kind of packaged and had the beans that I thought would rehydrate quickly, and the corn chips and salt. And so I added the chicken, but I would rehydrate my chicken at lunch in its own bag. And then when it was time for dinner, my chicken was already ready. Then all I had to do was make my soup. And since I eat soup at night before going to bed, all the extra liquid, it was fine because it was extra warmth going in.
Right, because that's a strategy you could do. That is, so you could rehydrate it separate, add it into once it's rehydrated, add it in with your other stuff, dump it over the hot water, and that warms it up. That's pretty good too. Pardon me. So let's talk about how to do it. So a dehydrator obviously is like super easy, right? That's wonderful. So let's talk about what you have. What brand?
I have the Nesco dehydrator. It's the one that I tried looking to see which model it was. I don't know.
But it's one of the round ones.
Yeah, so it's the round one. It's probably the most affordable one they had at the store at the time. And it has the 4 trays, and then it has like what I call like the jerky sheet on the bottom. And so you can put it in any of the trays that you want, but you only get 1 jerky sheet. And so I have that be the cleanup tray on the bottom.
Sure. So I had a Nesco, and the trays they were getting so old they were getting brittle.
Yes.
I actually gave it to my daughter, and she's like, she lives in Northern California, and she says, we use it to dry out chips. I'm like, how do chips and start? She goes, no, it's very humid. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. But, so she has that. But so for my birthday, I think it was for birthday, I got a Nesco dehydrator. Pardon me, not a Nesco, Excalibur, named after, just the name is pretentious, isn't it? What's really nice about the Excalibur is it's square. So for drying things in that are liquidy or wet, you need something to prevent that liquid from dropping through. So on a Nesco or something else, the way you do that is a sheet of parchment paper. You cut out a hole for the center, not wax paper, parchment paper, and put that down. So what comes with, so two things about the Excalibur, right, is it's square. So this is kind of nice, right? So they give you this little thing, which is very similar to yours.
Yes.
But then the one that is like luxuriously awesome is a sill mat, right? So they give me a sill mat with each of these. Well, I think we had to pay for them. And these I can, this gets the sticky stuff on it, and then it just goes in the sink and it gets washed. So those are really, really, really nice to be able to have. So,
and you get to use all of the real estate.
Right.
There's no missing real estate for yours.
Right. So, but you don't have to have a dehydrator to do it, right? You can do it in your oven. Pilot lights are kind of like a thing of the past. So maybe an electric oven, maybe turn it off and on, but you can do it. You can even air dry, right? So my, I guess he's my uncle-in-law. So Jill's uncle lives in Central Valley, and he just lays stuff out and dries apricots, cots, right? Cots and almonds, if you're from Modesto.
Yes.
Right. So that works too. A couple of things that are good to remember, right? Small pieces. The chicken, you need to break it down. When I'll do a ratatouille, the vegetable stew, I chop the pieces even smaller. Low fat. Low fat's really important. So fat is going to be your enemy when it comes to this stuff. I'll talk about fat later on when it comes to failures. And then the other one is make it packable, right? So be thinking about, especially if you're traveling in bear country. So when I first discovered dehydrating pasta, I'm like, spaghetti, great. And you dehydrate it, and it's this bird's nest. Like, well, that at first it doesn't pack well, and then it pokes holes in everything else in your bear can. Like, okay, so I'm like, well, what are some other pastas that work? Well, I found this is last year's. This is orzo, right? So this is a loaded one, and then the other one that I called it macaroni necklace noodles. You called it
ditalini.
Ditalini, right? So this is 5 servings of it. Now I vacuum packed it because I just finished this the other day, but this is ready to be.
That's for the ratatouille though. That's all the sauce, everything pasta together, right? That's not just pasta.
So this recipe is a loaded pasta. So I've got onions, mushrooms, zucchini, pepper, sauteed, a jar of sauce, and a whole pound of pasta. So this is half a pound. I've got one more of these. So this I'll break into a couple of times, repackage it for the trail.
And that's already dehydrated.
Ready to rock and roll. Yeah. And then I store mine. So since I do bulk batches, right? So I did an entire pound of pasta. So a pound of pasta is 8 servings technically. Add the veggies. I've got somewhere between 8 and 10 backpacker servings. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to experiment. So I've got bulk. So I vacuum packed it, and then I'm going to store them in a cold place, right? So I'll either store them in the fridge, the freezer, but I don't want to store them in a garage or a hot place, and then I'll repackage them as needed. So the vacuum pack, a vacuum pack is really nice for that bulk storage. And then the other one that's worth getting, I need to order some more, are some oxygen absorbers, right? So I just got these from Amazon, and there's oxygen absorbers, and then there's moisture absorbers. Or desiccants, right? Well, I don't need a desiccant because this is already dry. It's the oxygen in here that I'm more concerned about. So that's how I store my stuff long term. Okay, I've had a couple failures over the time. And what's interesting is what I had a failure on worked really well for you. And one of my failures was ground beef. So ground beef will dehydrate, right? I started with a lean ground beef. Cooked it, drained out all the fat, and then rinsed it and rinsed off all the fat. So it was probably a 15% fat. Now I've rinsed out, it's probably down to 5% fat, if that. Made sure it's nice crumbles, turned into little nuggets, dehydrated like a champ, rehydrated okay. And then went to eat it. It was like, why?
Yeast.
There was no flavor left. All that flavor got washed out. So for me, that was a failure in that if I wanted protein, I'll go with some soy textured TVP, right? It would just be for me. You had a different experience with it. You sound like you were happy with yours.
Rich really liked it. I thought it was just meh, and it served its purpose.
Yeah.
But Rich really liked it. But he's not a rich flavor, heavy sauce or any of those things kind of guy. He prefers the like the plain vegetable. You don't need to go as spicy as a tomato, and he likes his rice, and so like let's just keep it kind of plain. So if you rinse off some dehydrated or rinse off the hamburger and then dehydrate it, he's just like, oh yeah, that tasted great. Yeah, whatever, but it made him happy, and he was fine on the trail, which was good for us.
Yeah. So a disastrous failure that I had was stroganoff. So for me, my absolute epitome of comfort food is stroganoff. If I could have a beef stroganoff with a creamy sauce and a rice or a pasta, that would just be like in Mama's kitchen, man. If I could have that on the trail, I could have the shittiest day on the trail. I could have blisters on all my feet. I'm like, I'm in nirvana, right? I'm searching for that. So I'm like, well, the beef thing, that didn't work so well with the ground beef. So I found a recipe for mushroom stroganoff. I'm like, that could work. I'm like, okay, so how do we get around the fat issue? Coconut milk. Perfect. So it was a crap ton of mushrooms, onions, spicy apples, it's my new term for them. And the coconut milk. So I made this all up. It tasted pretty good. And then I went to dehydrate it. And as I'm dehydrating it, the moisture is leaving, but there's some weird moisture globules left. They're a little shiny. They're not moisture. It's the fat from the coconut milk, the oil.
I think that word globules.
No, it was. So I took a towel and I blot it. I'm like, yeah, that's oil. Well, coconut milk has a crap ton of oil in it. I'm like, oh, okay. So I blotted it. Ultimately, I didn't trust it because there was so much fat in there. I stored it in the freezer, and I was like, unless I'm going to eat it out of the freezer, I don't even think I should bring it out for a day, let alone anything else. So that was a big deal. So that was my failure. And then I've tried corn, and I think that's one. There's a few vegetables that are better to get freeze dried, right? So home freeze dried machines are ridiculously expensive. It's amazing they have them, but they're in the $3,000 to $5,000 range and high maintenance to them. But the freeze drying process is different than the air drying process, right? So corn, air dried corn rehydrates completely different than freeze dried corn. So, and that's true of some other vegetables. Some vegetables you can give them a little more time. So freeze dried chicken would be a different texture, or freeze dried ground beef would be a different texture than air dried. So keep that in mind as you experiment with that one. The other one is I just tried a garbanzo bean experiment. So like I said, I live with a vegetarian and a vegan, and one of the recipes is a garbanzo bean taco with a slaw. Well, I've got coleslaw dehydrating right now. It'll probably be done tonight or tomorrow morning. And I took garbanzo beans out of a can, smashed them a little bit for the right texture, and they rehydrated. They seem to rehydrate really well. So I might be able to have like a bean taco on the trail. So I'm still kind of playing around with that. But for 70 cents for a can of beans, it's worth playing around with.
That sounds like a really good lunch too, for a garbanzo bean and slaw kind of lunch. The carrots and cabbage, those things you can do at home, and those rehydrate really well, and they get the crunch back in exceedingly well. And I've played with broccoli and done broccoli, and the florets, they do well dehydrating. Rehydrating, but buying them freeze-dried, it's no better. It's no better getting them freeze-dried, so I won't waste my money on freeze-dried broccoli anymore.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. And the only way is to play around with that, right? Kind of see what works, what doesn't. And so I got one more thing on resources, and I don't have much in the way of resources. What's interesting is a lot of books all go towards trail cooking, or they go towards dehydrating for preppers and home people, right? So, shit's going to hit the fan and I'm going to get my guns. Well, okay. You're supposed to stop me because I'm about to. So that's true on Facebook too. However, there is a Facebook group. It's called Dehydrating Backpacking Food, just like it's named. I will put that in some show notes on YouTube, so you can reference that one. And I'll also try and put some recipes and other tips in the show notes as well. That's about all that I found on that one. So, okay. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left, and I see a couple of good comments. So,
just so we're really clear, one of the things that I think it is important if you're going to dehydrate that canned chicken, okay, is you were saying make sure that you break it up. When I made it, what I did was so a lot of the times when a person makes like a salad or something like that, they open the can and they squeeze out all the moisture. And then they take that and they put it in with the mayonnaise or whatever that is, and they're going to serve it. I squeezed it out into the jerky tray. And I made basically a chicken jerky with it, or I have like pieces of it, and I tore it up, and that's all flavor. Right. All salt, all flavor. So when you're trying to dehydrate it, pour extra on top if you have it to where it's going to go into the chicken, but definitely don't let any of it go to waste. Open that can over the jerky platter and don't lose any of it.
I'd say that's true of any recipe, right? If you made it too wet, normally at home you'd cook a little longer to cook off some of that moisture. Don't worry about it, right? It's gonna evaporate, right? So just put it on there. It'll be, and then you're gonna adjust the moisture content on the trail yourself, right? So you're gonna just, for the most part, the rule is cover it to hydrate it. So Doug brings up a good comment that a dehydrator is an easy way to prep shared food for large groups, right? My MO has not been shared food, but if you're doing shared food, that would be great. Nikki asked if you ever did lentils. I have not. I'm not a real big fan of lentils, but that would be super easy. Now, the thing about lentils is they're slow cooking, right? So cook them at home, take all the prep, do all your seasoning, and then just spread them out on a single layer. The sauce or that gravy, keep all that, right? And that's going to boil down. And then what I usually do is we'll take it and then crumble it down, with clean hands. I'll crumble it in a bowl, and then I will portion it up and make sure you get some of that dust or essentially the dried up juice in each one. You don't get it in the last serving, right? Because the last serving could be 10 beans and then all the soup.
Paste.
Yeah. Doug has an excellent comment, is never eat something for the first time on the trail. Always tried it at home. That is absolutely true of anything food related. One of my strategy is, there's two challenges, right? Is, do I like it, or does it rehydrate well? And the other one is, what's the portion? And that's really hard, right? And that's hard on anything. So what I will do with this guy is I will make a lunch out of this one. And I will make one portion. I know it's going to rehydrate well, but it'll help me understand about how to size this, right? Because is it a cup? Is it half a cup? How much material is right for a lunch? So I'll have it for a lunch. If it's more than I can eat for lunch, but it's close, that's about right for a backpacking trail. Now, later on a trip, you might get hungrier earlier, but that's hard to know. But that's always a great one. And I like doing it. I don't work in an office anymore. Hardly any of us work in an office anymore. But when I used to work in an office, I would take it to work, try it, and if it blew up, like, I'm going down to get a sandwich from the deli, right? That was my.
I remember those days.
Yeah, those are my ways around it. Okay, let's see anything else we've got. Don't dehydrate in the oven during the hours of 4 to 9 when SD Genie screws the residential customer. Okay, how about you just don't dehydrate in the oven when it's hot too? I mean, that's kind of. Oh yeah, so the, the one that I've been doing at home is I was making my pasta, right? So we all three of us left the house. We came back in, and this is dehydrating away. I've got I've got 3-4 trays of this stuff, spaghetti sauce and vegetables, and it's a little pungent. And my daughter walks in, my adult daughter walks in. She goes, "Ugh." And she goes, "It smells like hot spaghetti vomit." And it was like, I can appreciate that. It was heavy in the air. So be aware that, right, you have the potential for flavoring your house the whole way. So the next morning she got up and it was still dehydrating. It wasn't quite done, and it was making my coleslaw. So she walked into a cloud of vinegar as I'm making my coleslaw, and then she's got the hot spaghetti behind her, and she's like, "Now your strategy is that's how I'm going to get her to move out." But that's the next one, right?
You could do it. You could do it. You just have to find what you're going to do. You're going to dehydrate salmon. That's what you're going to do.
Maybe I just jump straight to dehydrating. Awesome. I'll just dehydrate cat food and just go through a kill shot. Wow.
It'll be awesome.
You're evil.
I am. I have to be stopped.
Well, okay, we're out of time. So 2 things. I will put this up on YouTube tonight or tomorrow, probably tomorrow, but you're watching this, so you don't care about that one. And then next week, we'll be back at the same time, and we're going to be talking about a Mineral King trip. So it'll be a little travel log. Kelly's going to join us, and we're going to share about a Mineral King trip that we took maybe 3-4 years ago, something like that. Yeah. So anyway, that'll be fun. That'll be fun too. So the travel logs are kind of nice too, to kind of see how things go. So, well, Sandra, thanks for being on, sharing your evil ideas with us. I appreciate that. And we'll see y'all next week. Have a great week, everybody.
All right. Bye.